I chose that song to be sung because this is the story of my journey. Come walk with me. The journey is long. The journey is long. My journey began on November 5, 1922, in the same room of the house where my father, John Kaufman, who was born in 1898, where he was born also. It was there that God breathed into my body the breath of life, and I became a living being. The early years of my journey were quite primitive compared to life at the present time. There was no electricity in our house until I was 14. We took our weekly bath in a tub behind the stove in the kitchen. There was a 2-minute walk to the outdoor toilet. A one-room school to which we walked, where we had 8 grades of grade school. Our bedrooms were too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter. We had a party line on the telephone. Our ring was 2 longs and 2 shorts. And we listened to the neighbors call occasionally to get the latest news. In spite of all that, I can say that I had a good life in those early years. I was fortunate to be born in a family that was Christian, who fed and clothed me and taught me how to live a godly life. I was the oldest of a family of 8 children, of which 4 are still living. Our family attended church regularly and got to the service usually ahead of time at church. Except one Sunday I remember when we had an accident on the Stringtown Road on the way to church. The steering rod dropped off the front axle. We swerved to the left, bumped into the bank of the ditch, and the car rolled over on its side. And I suppose Miriam and Weldon probably remember that particular accident. The Hopedale Mennonite Church was important to my journey. It was 5 miles from our home, a significant distance in those days. I remember the church building that now still stands, and that was built in 1926. I would have been 4 years old at that time. One morning when I got out of bed, Mom told me that my father had taken a team of horses and a wagon to help haul gravel from the gravel pit to be used in mixing the concrete for the basement and the sidewalks of the new church building. Those sidewalks are still there. Apparently they did a good job. You have to excuse me, I'm not taking the time to look around while I'm talking. Because if I don't stick to this, you're going to be here longer. Another memory of one Sunday morning, when we were getting ready to leave the church, Bishop Simon Lawler came to our car to talk to my father. We were in a 1927 two-door Chevrolet, and that had a high enough roof that I was standing up in the back seat, listening to the conversation. One of the things that he said to my father was that he thinks it's time for the church to ordain another minister for the church. So happened that the little guy, about age 6, standing up in the back seat, was the next person to be ordained in 1949, 20 years after that conversation. Of course, I had no idea that my life vocation would be serving as a minister of the church at that point. I got my high school education in an unusual way. When I was an 8th grader in grade school, the high school had a visiting day for all of the 8th graders living in the area close by the high school. When my dad was taking me to the high school that morning, he told me that he didn't think I needed to go to high school because he needed my help at home to work on the farm. During that day, we visited classes, and near the end of the day, we were given a form to fill out with information about ourselves. After thinking about that form, after having filled it out, I suddenly realized I had signed up to attend high school. On the way home, I told my father what I had done. And on the way home, we talked about it, and then we agreed that I could go to high school if I would stay home to help on the farm 3 weeks during planting season and 3 weeks during the harvest season. I could go to high school, and that's the way we did it. It worked out quite well, and I knew I had to behave real well in high school, so that would have soon been the end of my high school education. After high school, I got a job with, worked 3 years on Fred Schwartzentruder's dairy farm. One morning, while milking the cows, I was standing between 2 Jersey cows with the surge milker in my hand. I heard a voice telling me I should go to Goshen College to prepare for serving as a minister in the church. This is an experience that I can't explain how it happened or why, but I understood, and I actually answered that voice out loud, saying that I would do that. So I enrolled as a student in Goshen College of January 1946. Now, let me back up a little bit. By this time in life, I realized my need for someone to go with me on the next part of the journey. So that the verse of what you sung, come share my burden and join in the song. Come share my burden and join in the song. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. The journey, the journey, the journey is long. Who would be the person that would be willing to join me in my journey? Who was that person? Proverbs 18:22 says, He who finds a wife finds a good woman. And I never quite caught on to that. It happened one Sunday morning at church during Sunday school time. There stood a good woman teaching a Sunday school class. Men don't often remember what other people wear, but I remember what she was wearing. She was wearing a white blouse and a black jumper. Lola Good was the answer to my search. The next part of the journey is more than 66 years long. It was preceded by a successful courtship of less than 1 year. And then we planned our wedding. We went over to Simon the Otter's house, sat in the living room, along with his family as an audience, and made the arrangements there. And we have always wondered since what they talked about after we left. Our wedding ceremony was May 23, 1946 at the Hopedale Mennonite Church, with a reception that same evening at the home of Lola's parents. Now, this is not, well, this is part of the journey. I was especially want to insert it. Lola is exactly the kind of person that I needed for the second part of the journey. She is a brave person, even though she has had no idea what she was getting into and where the journey would lead us. She is a devout Christian, ready to make changes when necessary, knows how to stretch the dollar and pinch the penny to meet the family needs. She does have a high school diploma and a 2-year college degree, but wishes often that it would have been earlier in life. Her growth continues in all of the reading she does, she continues to do. And you need to read Proverbs 31, 10 to 31, to get a further description of her. Let me use a few words from that. A capable wife, more precious than jewels, works with willing hands, girds herself with strength, opens her hands to the poor and needy, opens her mouth with wisdom, kindness is on her tongue, and looks well to the ways of the household, and fears the Lord. Thank you for being my partner on the journey. The first 3 years of our journey together were spent here in Goshen while I was getting my college degree. We lived in a third-floor apartment near the college on 8th Street. It cost us $35 per month. I worked evenings with the crew of college students at Honeycrust Bakery, baking cookies, 75 cents an hour. The bakery could sell all that we could make at that time because there was food rationing, and even the Amish people were buying cookies because they didn't have enough sugar at home. Near the end of those 3 years at the church at Hotel, let me start that sentence over. Near the end of those 3 years, the church at Hotel was making some choices with regard to ministerial leadership. In one of its meetings, it made the decision that it would choose a minister from its own membership. In the next meeting, in the following week, and the last Sunday of 1948, I was the person selected to be ordained. In that same meeting, it was announced that the ordination service would be held the following Sunday in 1949. Now, I need to tell you, we were not present at that meeting. We didn't know what was going on. Later that afternoon, after everyone knew they were going to ordain me, I received the information by telephone. I was told to get home and go to that ordination. Now, I think I need to explain that just a little bit further, because it was sort of assumed if you were a baptized member of the church that you would do whatever the church asked you to do. And so, having been, I guess, prepared for that by my own experiences, I knew that I would be ready to do that. So we were home the next Sunday morning, first Sunday in 1949, when I was ordained. The next 23 years of our journey were spent in the Hopedale area. In that time, our family grew to include 6 children. Those were busy years, meeting the needs of a family growing up, all of the events at church and school, and my work as minister with part-time jobs, leaving the task of rearing the children to Lola for more than her share of the responsibility. We thank God for our 6 children. All are married, have families of their own, so that the immediate family now totals more than 40. Each of the 6 children had a different vocation. It includes an attorney, an administrator, a freelance writer, a nurse, a Spanish teacher, and a travel agent. All of them, we are thankful for, are actively involved in churches where they live with some leadership responsibility in 5 different denominations. A brief summary of the 22 years that we spent in the Chicago area include this: 13 years as executive staff person with the Mennonite Church General Board of Canada and the United States. 3 years as a coordinator for the Illinois Mennonite Conference. 2 years as an interim pastor at the Lombard Mennonite Church. 4 years of voluntary service at Brementown Manor in Tinley Park in the Chicago area. And spare time involvement with the Chicago area churches and the Chicago Mennonite Learning Center, the development of Brementown Manor, and all of that. Those were busy years. In 1994, we continued our journey, moving back to Goshen, and it has been another good 18 years. 12 years in our house that we had built, and 6 years here at Greencroft. Come give us peace when the journey's about done. Come give us peace when the journey's about done. The journey's been long. The journey's been long. The journey's been long. The journey's been long. My personal goal is not to live as long as the medical profession is capable of keeping a person alive. My goal is to live well and faithfully in the time that God gives to me. There does come a time when the body wears out and we need to move on to the next part of the journey. I believe that when my body wears out, life does not end. It continues on into another setting. The words of Jesus, those who believe in me, even though they die, will live and will never die. And also, in my Father's house are many apartments. I go to prepare a place for you. My grandfather Litwaller lived to be 90 years old. When on his 90th birthday, he wrote the following thing down in his own handwriting. And I'm quoting his writing. There can be no more lasting joy than to remember those who have come to know the Lord or who have been helped in their spiritual lives during our sojourn here below. O fathomless mercy of infinite grace, in humble thanksgiving the road I retraced. Thou never hast failed me, my strength and my stay. To whom shall I turn for the rest of the way? Through danger, through darkness, by day and by night, thou ever hast guided and guided aright. I have trusted in thee and peacefully lay my hand in your hand for the rest of the way. I say amen to my grandfather's writing. I just want to add on yet that I'm thankful that all of you can be here today. You're very welcome, and it's very rewarding to meet you here. I have enjoyed my life, and I feel good about it, and I want to give thanks to God for giving me this kind of health, even in my 90th year. God bless you all.